What if I told you one of the biggest banks in the world was helping drug dealers and terrorists move billions of dollars? And instead of being punished, they walked free and grew even richer. In 2012, HSBC was in trouble. Big trouble. They were caught letting drug cartels launder hundreds of millions of dollars. The US government hit them with a massive $1.92 billion fine and put them on probation for 5 years. It was like putting a problem student in the front row. They even assigned a hall monitor, a special watchdog, to sit inside the bank and watch their every move. They promised they had changed, but what if that was all just for show? What if, while the monitor was watching the front door, a secret $4 billion criminal empire was running right through the bank's back office? This is the insane story of what HSBC found internally, and then allegedly tried to hide a secret that makes you wonder if some banks are just too big to control. To really get how wild this is, you have to go back to 2012. HSBC was in the middle of a nightmare. A US Senate report exposed the bank for ignoring huge red flags, basically acting as a getaway driver for money launderers and terrorist financiers. The details were crazy. Their branches in Mexico literally had wider teller windows to fit bigger boxes of cash from drug traffickers. The bank had become a favorite for cartels like Sinaloa and Norte del Valle, washing at least $881 million of their drug money. The US Department of Justice could have destroyed the bank with criminal charges. Instead, they made a deal called a Deferred Prosecution Agreement, or DPA. Think of it like this. The government had a guillotine ready to drop on HSBC, but they agreed to pause it right above the bank's neck for 5 years. If HSBC behaved perfectly, the government would remove the guillotine. If they messed up, swoosh. HSBC had to pay a stunning $1.92 billion fine, admit it broke the law, and completely overhaul its systems. And to make sure they did it, that watchdog, an independent lawyer named Michael Cherkasky, was put inside the bank. Publicly, HSBC was on its best behavior. The CEO promised they could now fight financial crime much more effectively. They spent billions on new systems. To the outside world, it looked like a success story. A huge bank got caught, got punished, and was on the road to reform. But that wasn't the full story. The whole thing started to unravel in 2016, right in the middle of HSBC's probation. The bank's own investigators were looking into a corruption scandal in South Africa involving the Gupta family. But while digging around, they found something way, way bigger. Their own report called it a professional money laundering network. This wasn't just a few sketchy accounts. This was a massive criminal operation that had funneled an unbelievable $4.20 billion through 92 HSBC accounts in Hong Kong. And get this, it was running between 2014 and 2017, almost the entire time the bank was being watched. The scheme was a masterclass in financial crime. Imagine a giant, dirty mud puddle of cash from things like the alleged Gupta bribes. The criminals poured this mud into a complex plumbing system inside HSBC. The system used dozens of shell companies, which are like fake pipes that don't lead anywhere real, to blast the muddy water around, mixing it with clean water until it shot out the other side looking completely clear. This made it almost impossible to trace where the money came from. It was a perfect system for washing billions, running inside a bank that swore it was clean. The investigation wrapped up in 2017, and even then, 60 of these criminal accounts were still active. HSBC had found a huge problem. It was like a rehab patient who swore they were sober, had just been caught running a secret distillery in their basement. The big question was, what were they going to do about it? This is where the story goes from a massive failure to an alleged cover-up. Remember that watchdog Michael Cherkasky? His entire job was to make sure HSBC was stopping this exact kind of thing. The bank was supposed to tell him everything. But according to his former team members, they were never told about the $4.2 billion Hong Kong network. One former monitor said it perfectly. HSBC never voluntarily disclosed money laundering to us. They waited to be asked about it. As far as he knew, the internal report on the Hong Kong ring was never shown to them, and it seemed to be a bigger laundering network than any they had found. HSBC's excuse was a masterclass in corporate double talk. It was like a teenager on a diet who gets caught eating a whole cake and tells their parents, "Well, I told my friend I was eating it. You have a different role." They claimed they told the right local authorities but argued the US monitor serves a different role, and that their talks were confidential. It was a clever way of saying, we might have told someone but we allegedly didn't tell the one person the US government sent to keep us in line. This alleged secrecy makes the monitor's own reports look even worse. The full reports are sealed, but summaries show that the monitor had significant concerns, and found that HSBC managers were often combative. Even with these warnings, the monitor apparently never knew about the $4.2 billion elephant in the room. Then, in December 2017, the craziest thing happened. Exactly 5 years after the deal was signed, the US Department of Justice announced it was dropping the charges against HSBC. They said the bank had lived up to all of its commitments. HSBC was officially reformed. This is absolutely staggering. Imagine a patient being monitored for a deadly disease, and after 5 years the doctor declares them completely cured. But 4 years later you find out the patient had been hiding a massive raging infection the entire time. The world only found out about this network in 2021, thanks to journalists. And this wasn't a one-time thing. The FinCEN files, another massive leak, showed that even on probation, HSBC kept moving money for Ponzi schemes and criminal groups. More recently, its Swiss division has been under investigation for handling money linked to alleged embezzlement from Lebanon's central bank, after internal alarms were reportedly ignored for over a decade. This leads to a scary question. Can a bank this big ever really be controlled? The US government said their deal was a sword of Damocles hanging over the bank. But they removed that sword without ever knowing one of the biggest crimes was happening right under their noses. At the end of it all, the HSBC scandal didn't teach the world that greed is dangerous or that crime doesn't pay. Instead, it showed the opposite. The bank admitted to laundering billions, yet it walked away with nothing more than a fine that barely touched its profits. No top executives went to jail, no real punishment followed. The message was clear. If you're big enough, greed isn't just forgiven, it's rewarded. The bigger the crime, the lighter the consequences. In this story, greed wasn't only good, it was untouchable. Thank you for watching.